Wait, what? What? Andrew got crushed? Wait, did he really? And Warren Smith? Hold on. Guys, I'm gonna be real here. I don't think Tim Pool can 2v1 Andrew Wilson and Warren Smith. These are both of them. These are both the guys I like a lot. Wait, what? Wait, what happened? All right.
Tim doesn't seem to really know what hit him here.
You have no right to do shit except whatever you can enforce.
Right.
Your mechanism is force, and the mechanism against you is force.
And so
all rights are force.
Oh shit, he's going like force doctrine on
government
him.
protections, not rights.
Oh, no,
mechanism against you, whatever you can enforce.
Right.
Your mechanism is force, and the mechanism against you is force.
And so
all rights are force.
You're talking about government protections, not rights.
No, I'm talking about rights. What is a right?
He has not thought this through in this way before, because most people don't go to this level. When you encounter someone who has,
The reality is rights are recognized.
It's gonna be very hard. Like, this is actually gonna be really interesting because, like, I mean, I like Temple. Like, I like Beanie Man. But so this is gonna be like some right on right violence here. Well, actually, like Temple's like, you know, the funny thing is Temple actually is probably liberal, but like he's been basically pushed into like kind of conservatism because of just the ridiculousness on the left. He's probably like between me and Asmund, basically. It's like where I would put him if you had like the political spectrum. I'd say like he's like between me and Asmund. Anyway, so like this is gonna be interesting. All right.
Recognized as things that we can and must do to survive and maximize potential.
I think rights are force, and I think that...
You think rights are force?
Government
rights are
protections.
What do you mean?
I actually agree with Andrew on this, by the way, that rights are force. This is going to be kind of hard, I think, for Tim. Like, if I were to like, guys, if I were like the shoutcaster for this matchup, I would say that this is going to be pretty hard for Tim because this is Andrew Wilson's entire fucking bread and butter. Like this is like his arena, basically. Like this topic is where Andrew thrives. So it's going to be kind of rough. Let's see.
Rights are force.
wait a minute, what? But hang on a sec.
Right, to me, is an entitlement absent duty. That's a right. Okay, you're entitled to it, but
Yes.
you have no duty.
What does that mean?
That means that like it exists regardless of what you do, basically. Like regardless of like it exists regardless of what you do. Yeah, that's it. That's
Do you
what it
have a
means.
right to own a gun? Do you have a duty to own a gun?
But do you have a duty to speak?
No, you don't
Start
have a
with the
duty
First
to
Amendment.
speak.
If you have a right to vote, do you have a duty to vote? The answer
right.
is
So
yes.
it would be an entitlement.
That's your argument.
It's an entitlement,
But
absent a duty.
The line is drawn on two layers by the laws of physics and the legal framework.
But you can speak.
Yeah, you can.
And so
until you can't.
The question
until somebody stops you with force.
You only have a right
Yes.
if you can defend it against force.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah.
Founding fathers made it clear that we've created this framework, but it's up to you to be able to protect it and keep it.
So you're talking about
The right basically means that like the government. He means it's not earned. Yeah, exactly. It's not earned.
government restrictions are made up by us as a people.
Just people can adhere to your rights without any form of government. If you're walking down the street and you speak, and a guy turns around and smacks you in the mouth and breaks your jaw, right? He has now used force against whatever this right you think you have to speak.
We do walk around today as though this is all it's just the way it is and nothing can challenge it, but it will be challenged.
By the way, this is like the entire root of like my 2A advocacy, by the way. The reason like I really believe in the Second Amendment is like specifically like for this.
At some point.
So it is an intrinsic moral function.
Well, okay,
or
intrinsic meaning what?
It means if again, I'll try.
Basically, like his argument is that all of this is froofy. Like you to say like for instance, and this is like the same argument of like, oh, I have a right to a house. I deserve a house and a place to live, right? Well, what? Like, who's gonna like how are you gonna get that? Right? Are you gonna use violence to get that? Like, say like I built two houses with my own hands, and like you want one of my houses because you think you deserve one. Well, then what do you mean by that? You're gonna come take my second house, right? And then that has to be implemented by force, right? Because then you have to like either employ the government, so the force of like your vote. Of voting like the entire government to take it away from you by force. Because, the majority decided that like, that house that you own belongs to John. Like, because John doesn't have a house and he should have a house because he has a right to a house to live. He has a right to live in a house. It would be him employing the force of like all of the people to take it away. So like in the end, the only reason why he could even take that house as a right is because he's using force to take it.
Explain. If you're born and you live in the
That's why force is the bottom line of everything. in the world, basically, in terms of the enforcement of anything is only granted via force.
In all the woods, there are things you can do. You can hunt for food, you can defend yourself, you can speak freely.
But because you can do something doesn't mean you have the right to do it.
Yeah. So it's like a good example here is like if you say you have a right to like hunt a deer and eat it, you can do that until somebody uses force to say you can't. Right? So like if you have a king basically that says, okay, like, and this happened in history before, by the way. The king goes, "This forest belongs to me. It is my forest now, and only by the king's decree may one hunt here." Right? Now you can no longer hunt there. You don't have that right anymore. All it took was a person with a big army saying you can't. That's all it is, basically, right?
What makes it an intrinsic right to be able to do? Like, where does this idea come from other than you axiomatically kind
Evolution?
of just say because I can do something, I have the right to do something?
It's part of a evolutionary biological structure that resulted in the survival of humanity.
Okay, then why do other countries not reflect that evolutionary biological structure with the same rights?
So if I like
See, guys, this is why I like Warren. I like Warren so much.
grab a spear and I can't.
Can you guys see where I come from? Where I come from, like mentally, it's because I watch Warren a lot.
Stab somebody with it, I have a right to.
The legal framework is what prevents you from being able to stab the person with the spear.
No, that's
Why?
that's attacking
different.
somebody. That's violating.
Yeah, but other
that's a
than
whole
an
bunch-
axiom of you shouldn't do that because I just don't feel like you should, what makes it intrinsic that I don't do that?
that you don't go and kill another person.
Yeah.
So the way I view rights would be things that and again, there's a debate over what rights are.
Yeah, let's start with that. What are they?
I genuinely think Tim
Yeah.
has never been challenged on this idea before.
Because like who would, right? Like I think as people who guys, and we are privileged right now to live, and you might think that the world sucks and like, oh guys, like the world is like the worst, like, you know, there's like all this, like, you know, people are fighting and like you know, like the economy's bad and like the culture sucks. Like you can think all these things, but we are like privileged to live in the time that we are like right now, to be honest, compared to like people from any time in history. We live right now, at least for people in the West, in America. I don't know about other countries, but we live in an unprecedented time of like safety and prosperity, like just the general prosperity for the individual person. You might think that like, well, I'm not prosperous compared to like Bill Gates or to like Elon, but think about yourself compared to like a person from like in the past, right? Like we live in a time right now where like our safety is like almost for granted, right? Like we're like, you know, I'm going to go to the store tomorrow and like, I'm going to be fine. And like, I'm not, and there's a lot of people that like, you know, I'm against guns and I don't want to have a gun. The fact that you can go to like the store and not even worry about bringing a gun for your own safety, that's crazy. Like honestly, like historically, like if you think about it, right? Like think about like times before, if a person was like, yo, that person's wife is hot, I'm gonna fucking kill him. And like, you know, I'm gonna fucking kill him and like take his wife and his kids. I'm gonna sell his kids off to slavery. And yes, my wife now. And it's my house now. And like all he had to do was kill you for it. And like no one's gonna stop him, right? Like who's gonna fucking who's gonna stop him? Right? Like back in the day, like who's gonna like gonna take him in? Right? Like you better pray that there's like a fucking government that even cares about you. That like the king cares enough about you to actually like send people to like to enforce justice. Because if he doesn't, and you live in the middle of buttfuck Egypt and like nobody knows, then like nothing happens. Like again, like your rights didn't matter at that point, right? And that's kind of the point is like we live right now in a time where like we don't have to worry about the enforcement of rights.
No. So there, it's honestly difficult to define,
Yeah.
but it is certain moral structures or.
I would say axioms. Would you agree with that? Just an axiom. So like you have inalienable rights from God according to the Constitution. This is an axiomatic principle. It means this is our like philosophical starting point is that we have these.
I would put it as things that were required or greatly beneficial to the survival of an individual that we greatly benefit.
I agree. I agree. We
It's-
benefit. I just don't know what makes them intrinsic or like you're born with them or something like this, other than we just kind of agree to it.
So I think
Yeah.
the restrictions we kind of agree to, and some people might view some things as rights and other things not as rights.
I think Tim is using the word right.
I like how Warren, like, this is like so funny to me. Like, Warren is like, his style is like, he's talking to a camera, but like, he's watching it on his phone. He's watching it on his phone or like some kind of iPad or something.
It's too loosely. and that's why he's getting trapped.
Yeah, but when I'm asking you this question, right, I'm asking the foundation from which you say, I have the right to speak or write.
We need to be able to in order to survive.
So now everything that you need to do in order to survive, you now have a right to it?
You have to eat? You have a right to eat?
Yes, 100%.
Really? You have a right to do that?
Why do we have to then go pay for food?
I'm asking what makes it...
Yeah, why do you have to pay for food? Why do you have to why do you have to grow the food? Why do you have to hunt the food? If like it's just an innate thing, right?
Intrinsic. When you say I have a right to eat, okay?
If you don't, you'll die.
If you have no... If that guy has all the food over there...
Basically, the belief, like when they say, like, for instance, that like you have a right given from God, basically means that God will punish it in the end if somebody infringes on it. Does that make sense? So when Christians say something like these rights are unalienable and like given to you by God, does not mean that on earth that right cannot be infringed. Basically, the meaning behind it is that in the end, divine retribution, according to the belief of like Christian ethics, basically, at the end of the day, God will judge those who have infringed on your rights. Basically, that's what it means.
You no longer have a right to eat.
We're not talking about your right to steal from others. If you are
so you no longer have a right to eat.
And then, sorry, and further, like to go to the next level of that, God will justice from God will win in the end is like the theological argument from it. And since the founding of the nation was based on Christian ethics, therefore on earth, the government will ensure that for you. Does that make sense? Like the justice on earth is going to be enforced by the government who believes in the Christian ethics. Does that make sense? It's like if murder is bad and like God says that murder is bad, therefore we as the people will enforce that ourselves as well on earth with our justice. So justice will be done on heaven and earth via the two different things. Basically, that's the moral framework of it.
If you're standing in the woods by yourself, eat that mushroom.
Okay, got it. You can eat the mushroom. But what makes it a right to eat that mushroom, and what makes it not a right for guy standing next to the mushroom to say, I have a gun and I don't want you to eat that mushroom?
You're now once again talking about laws and restrictions.
Yeah, okay, but my whole theory is that rights themselves are force.
This whole thing sparked off of just the claim that rights are bound by force.
And that's all they ever are. It's just your ability to use force to do thing you want to do.
I think you're just making
you call that a right.
So there's a distinction between freedoms and rights.
If you're making an argument that someone should or should not be allowed to do something is an entirely human social construct.
I agree.
Right. I'm saying that the reason we have protections of rights is because we've determined certain things are required for the reasonable survival and expansion of humanity.
But the thing is like, I'll finish.
Why? Okay, but this makes no sense, right? So if all right is to you, Tim, is thing X which is necessary for the survival of a man, in this case, blinking and breathing and eating, and why couldn't you extend that to literally everything? You need healthcare to survive. You need guns to survive. You need a house to survive. You need everything to survive.
And I think Tim realizes he has cornered himself here, and he hasn't thought this through before.
I think we should move on, but
classic. It was a classic move, dude. Oh man, dude. Wait, I'm confused. Like, what is this? What is this? Like, Tim Pool owns Warren? What? Am I like missing something? Didn't Tim do a video that said that he owned Andrew Wilson and Warren Smith? Wait, I'm confused. What?
I think the challenge is, I don't know if you're unwilling to understand or what.
No,
is it just clickbait? Like, I'd respect it if it's just clickbait. I don't get it.
The level of analysis is different. He's thinking at this through the lens of epistemology.
You have no right to force a doctor to perform surgery on you, but you certainly have a right to ask him for it.
Those are just assertions.
No, you have the freedom to ask him for it.
Like, you just assert these things as though they have a grounding epistemic foundation from which you can make the assertion. Based on where do you make the assertion that you're not allowed to do X other than because Tim Pool's preference is that you don't?
Yeah, so like if you think about this like in terms of law, like to kind of simplify, like to give an example like that everyone can understand. The reason why like you can't murder somebody is because if you murder somebody, then the government will use violence against you to enforce the rules that like they determined. right? But then say the government couldn't murder you. Like let's say that, like, I don't know, you're like fucking, I don't know, you're like One Punch Man, or like you're like here's a good example. Say like you're like Vegeta, right? And Vegeta's like 10 Hitlers, right? Say you're Vegeta, right? And you come to Earth and you fucking punch a dude and you like instantly kill them, right? You're like, I just take that Kakarot, I just killed that guy, right? And then they're like, and then the police are like, Vegeta, you are under arrest for killing that person. And Vegeta's like, fuck you, I'm not going to jail. I'm gonna go train. There's like nothing they can do about it, right? Like, where's your rights now? Because then Vegeta can just be like, what are you gonna do about it? You can't take me to jail. I'm fucking Vegeta, right? Like then all of that gets thrown out the window. That's what I mean. It's like it can only, like, rights are only enforceable through force. Even when it comes like hold on, wait. I gotta be careful if I'm gonna say this. I think it's true though. I might be wrong. I haven't really thought about this one part very much. I literally just thought of it now. I think this applies even with God. That God also uses force in the end. I think it's true, actually. I don't see any way around it. I think it's true. Yeah. Even God uses force in the end. Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to be careful because it's like, you know, it's kind of a very big statement to make. But yeah. Like force is the reason why you can have rights, basically.
Where does the thinking come from at the root level?
I think that you can say that everyone has these, right?
Yeah, but God allows you to choose your way there. That's actually a perfect thing to say, actually. So somebody in chat said, Thrival91 on Twitch says, yeah, but God allows you to choose your way there. That's the difference between rights and freedom. Do you see it? Like, that's actually what they're talking about. That is the difference. You have the freedom to choose, right? But then, like, the right is still enforced through force. Yes.
And it's a function of whether or not their government allows the rights to be recognized.
That's the contention. When you say, I think everybody has these rights.
Yeah, that is my belief.
Yeah, it's a belief.
Yeah.
Based on.
It says it's not force. It's also fear. Well, what you fear is the force, right? And then the fear doesn't matter if there is no force, right? Like, basically the force exists regardless of fear. The fear part doesn't matter because it regardless of the fear existing or not, the force still must exist to enforce the right, basically.
They're going to try and counter this by claiming, well, Andrew, you're saying that might makes right.
You're saying might makes right, which is
beyond that. I think you're making a postmodernist argument for.
That's a good argument. That was like actually perfect.
Andrew, you're saying that might makes right.
And you have this person here who's going to say like might makes right, because that sounds like really good, right? That sounds like a really good thing to say. Like, oh, what you're saying, like might makes right? Like, wow, like that's such a bad thing to say. But like, listen to how Andrew counters it.
Might makes right, which is
beyond that. I think you're making
That's it. Might makes. Because it does. It makes everything, right?
Postmodernist argument for why you should be allowed to do things that other people.
I fucking just didn't even respond to it. Oh man, feels bad. That was like that was such a man. That was a perfect attack. It was short to the point, and it was like chef's kiss. You know.
Don't want you to do.
It gets really interesting when Tim Pool tries to accuse Andrew Wilson of postmodernism.
I think you're making a postmodernist argument for why you should be allowed to do things that other people don't want you to do.
I think I think the opposite is true. I would use a justification of God.
Some people jump at the mention of the word God, but you can switch out the word God with fabric of reality, which allows the laws of logic to exist.
And I would appeal to something which is unchanging and an unchanging standard for moral justification.
That's true. You could replace that with you could change that to fabric of reality for the atheists out there. You could use fabric of reality. It would be the same argument.
Oughts.
And you could disagree with that, but you have to anchor it to something. Where does it come from?
I think you're doing deconstructivist reasoning to argue why.
It's just basic philosophy. It has nothing to do with deconstruction or postmodernism. Basic philosophy, you have to have a justification for a position.
This is what happens when you treat thinking as though it is interconnected at the same level.
I actually am so confused. Like, I have no, like, how does Tim Pool make a video about owning Warren Smith and Andrew Wilson in using this, unless it's a different thing that he's talking about? Like, I don't know. Maybe you should watch it.
Of physics.
So you haven't demonstrated why the axiom or the starting point. We start with rights, Andrew. You haven't demonstrated why we do, other than because I observe that if we don't act in this way, you expire. But it's like, okay, but why is that even bad? Like, why is that even a bad thing?
Why is it bad that humans cease to exist?
Yeah, why would that even be a bad thing from the worldview of rights?
And many people stop right there at that level because it seems so obvious.
Like, oh, okay, if you don't have this right, you die. But you haven't justified why that's even a bad thing.
Because humans exist through a pattern of evolution towards, or creation, whichever you decide.
Dude, he hit him with like the deepest fucking argument, because the answer to that is like but why is that bad? Why is that right? Because you could just apply the same argument like again, right? Like, so if like you're saying that it's bad that humans don't exist, or like if a human were to cease to exist, that would be a bad thing, but why?
We decide to be fruitful.
Dinosaurs becoming extinct, why is that worse than human beings becoming extinct?
Yep.
Do you see where he's going with this?
Either from an evolutionary standpoint, humans developed to inhibit certain...
And this is like basically the it is the primordial root, basically, is that it all goes to God, basically.
To inherit certain requirements to function efficiently. And when these things are curtailed, we see inefficiency and collapse, disease and chaos.
This is circular. So you go, okay, we need to bear fruit and multiply. Why? Well, because then we can exist.
Because God
why
said
do we
so.
need to exist? Because then we can bear
Exactly.
fruit and multiply. Okay, but why? Because then we can...
The only way out of the loop is to basically say it's a good thing because God said it's a good thing. That's it. Like,
So now Tim's bringing in religious worldview.
it's over, basically.
You justify rights as coming from God.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, then we're fine there.
This is where he's got him.
As we get to the heart of it then, right here, where we come to this agreement, where I reject this, is that I think all the things you just stated are duties. They're duties, they're the opposite of rights. You have a duty.
I just think we're having a semantic argument.
Well, but semantics are super important so we don't speak past each other. So when I say a duty, it's an obligation to do a thing based
Nice. That was a really nice like freaking counter. Like, cause this is a typical counter. Is like we're having like a semantic argument, and like he actually fought that off, because typically when you say that, like, oh, we're having a semantic thing, these are arguing into like whether or not it's semantics or not. Instead, he stepped into the blow. So if you like imagine it as a fight, like he basically hit him with like this really big hit, which was like, well, it's a semantic argument, right? And typically what happens is the person will defend that it's a semantic argument, like, oh, it's not a semantic argument, and they go, but it is a semantic argument, and you like completely changed like the dynamic of the fight into like semantics. You took it out of like a position where you had a domineering position, and then Andrew Wilson stepped into the blow, took the hit, and said, yeah, and like now he has nowhere to go. Now he's completely fucking checkmated.
opposite of rights. You have a duty.
I just think we're having a semantic argument.
Well, but semantics are super important so we don't speak past each other. So when I say a duty, it's an obligation to do a thing.
See, now he gets to continue his line of reasoning into like the final form of it,
You're
basically.
commanded to, in this case by God. A right, I would say, is an entitlement absent duty. So if that's the case, what you're listing out is like God is giving us these duties to do. I'm not sure what rights he's giving you.
Because it is critically thinking to the most basic layer of where your thinking comes from.
Yo, chat, that was fucking beautiful. I'm like about to cry.